Welcome to Side Quests and Save Points, the podcast where we ignore the main quest, talk to all the NPCs, and absolutely loot everything that's not nailed down. Today's side quest is with Annie VanderMeer, narrative designer, world builder, and one of the rare people on Earth who can say they've helped shape entire universes and explain why that one NPC had a beef with you 3 towns ago. From Destiny to Guild Wars 2 and more games you've got backlog guilt for, Annie brings the kind of storytelling wisdom that makes you question why you don't have your own dialogue trees that branch like that. So grab a drink, resist the urge to skip the lore, and settle in. This one's got more plot than a vanilla monologue. So welcome to your save point. Let's get started with this side quest. Hello, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing well. It is a hot day in Seattle, and I know it's probably a cooler night where you're at because time zones are fun.
Only just. I would say until about 2 or 3 nights ago, we were high 30s, well, mid 30s, which is absolutely crazy over here.
Yeah, I could.
Because we don't have aircon built into our buildings, and our buildings are designed to trap heat, not let it escape.
Yeah, that was a rarity in Seattle for a while, so I'm like so infinitely grateful where I'm at right now has air conditioning, because otherwise you would hardly be able to hear me. I would just have fans all around me, and we would just be yelling this conversation back and forth like I was in a hurricane to just try to not sweat everything off of my face.
Fantastic.
Yay, weather, right?
Yeah, but global warming doesn't exist.
No, not at all.
So I'm going to get started with a couple of questions that I tend to start with. The first one is, what is your first gaming memory?
This one is always really, really fun because it has, like, I feel like I should have, like, it would fit the timeline for me to have my first gaming memory be like, you know, one of those cocktail style cabinets of, you know, Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man at some like pizza parlor, dimly lit. But my first one is of Castlevania, because I'd gotten chickenpox, got my brother extremely sick with chickenpox, and friends of the family felt really bad for him because he couldn't go to school for like 2 weeks, and lent him their family's NES, which I'm sure their kids were super happy about. But so my brother was locked in playing games at all times, and the first just electric memory that I have is that first scene where Simon Belmont is walking to the gates. They open, and you get that vista of that iconic castle, and that just like locked into my brain and has been like running as a background process, you know, since age 6. So yeah, that's a pretty strong one. Like I've where I look back at that and think like, yeah, I was transfixed. It's a good thing though I wasn't playing, because I would have gotten the hell killed out of me real fast a lot, because it's Castlevania, and
Yep,
you know,
that makes
games do not
sense.
pull punches.
Second thing I want to go over is fact checking your Wikipedia page.
Ooh, that's always fun.
Has it?
Have at it.
Do you look at it? Have you done it in a while, or do you just let people go crazy and?
It's been a while. I don't know if anybody, like, I will admit, like, I started that page and at the Double Bear page back in like 2009 as just sort of a like, you know, oh, we'll just put that there, and it wasn't that weird to make a page for sort of stuff and like, you know, publicity for that company then, and then it, you know, it became kind of like a notable thing, and I'm like, I just did it when there weren't like locks on that, and now people have added stuff, and you know, yay the internet. So if some, I'm sure, will be a revelation to me. But yeah, have at it. This will be fun.
So it has you. It lists. I'm going to say some of the names you're credited under: Annie VanderMeer, Mitsoda,
Yes.
Carlson, Vandermeer Carlson, and then just plain Vandermeer. But
Yes.
that one has Anne at the front, not Annie.
Yeah, that is my given name. And I actually, honest to God, don't know if I was ever credited under anything under, you know, the very specific legal name that one uses when one is signing contracts or going to the doctor. But I think that was probably me at an early stage, just being like, man, just in case. So yeah, rolling the dice there, trying to cover all that.
It says you attended Macalester College and earned a honours BA in English in 2003, teaching about science fiction and fantasy in contemporary American literature.
That is accurate. It was a
Fantastic.
93 page honors project. in which I reference as part of the sort of snooty literature. Oh my god, now I just remember the thing. It was Dying Inside by Robert Silverberg, the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman, and because there were only three at the time, and now there's what five. Like the first three books of the Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. Like I was lucky that I had a fantastically nerdy mentor, Stephanie Burt. She's teaching at Harvard now, and she's amazing. But she was the one who actually suggested all of those books, and so in addition to her being incredibly supportive about that, she recommended some just dope lit that was fun as hell to read. I also made the mistake of, oh, I'll just spend the first semester reading and the second semester writing, and I will tell anybody who's in college right now, that's fucking stupid. Don't do that. It's a bad plan. It's a real bad plan. I found that out the hard way. Please don't do that.
Then it says here that you discovered there were limited opportunities to study and teach this subject. You started work at Papaya Studio
Yes.
under what was going to be a sequel video game to the film Taxi Driver.
Yes. And I watched that movie like I took this all so seriously because I sort of figured if I didn't, people who were actual fans of this, fantastic film would want to stab me in the eyeball. So I watched it really exhaustively. And I went from like being a business writer there to they were going to have Hollywood writers write the script, and we got something 6 months late that was impossible to put in a game because it was pretty much Travis goes to point A, gets the crap kicked out of him, and then goes to point B and gets the crap kicked out of him. There was no like gameplay element to it whatsoever. So then I got to write it, which was fun being 23, 24, and like essentially writing the sequel to Taxi Driver. And I have not been able to watch that movie since because it's just kind of like a PTSD trigger. Great film, really, but holy crap, can't anymore. Having to stop other designers from fitting in the line like, "Yeah, I'm talking to you," and it's like he says that in his room by himself. Why would some random thug yell that at him? Like they're trying to, yeah. See, PTSD just coming all
Yep.
back to me in a flash.
Fantastic. Glad I could help.
Insane.
It says when that was cancelled, you then joined Obsidian Entertainment in January of 2006, began working on Project New Jersey, which was then cancelled, and you joined the Neverwinter Nights 2 team, primarily working on handling in-game items.
Yes. It was a kind of whirlwind. It was like 2 months after I joined that project was canned, which is unfortunate because I know that multiple people looked at that project as a sort of like one that got away, like, "Oh, this would have been so fun." It's such a shame that it was kind of like the publisher didn't really seem to know what they wanted, kind of like, "No, make the main character older. No, we're gonna just, go younger. No, it has to be more grimdark." And it was like the fact that I could detect that in the 2 months I was there while the project was active was like, yeah, that's a big old red flag now. It was cool. It was the, Unreal 3 engine in its infancy, getting to
Ooh.
see how that was that was working, yeah.
Then says you went on to work as a writing assistant for Alpha Protocol, but unfortunately, most of that was cut out, and you ended up only sort of really being credited with creating some of the characters, even though they might have been changed from what you had originally envisioned them to be.
Yeah, a character was I worked on the informant, and I the funny thing is, like, I haven't played Alpha Protocol because it feels like, to me, almost like checking back in with an ex. That's the best way I can put it. It's like, I feel like at some point I should. There's not, like there wasn't, like, bad blood there, but it's just sort of like the game went through a massive change between what I worked on and what actually went out. Like a major character that I worked on apparently was just forgotten and like cut out of the final one. Yeah, there were a lot of different changes in plot as well as tone. So I feel like I could probably play it now and just divorce myself from the idea that I worked on this game kind of. But yeah, a lot of the sort of systemic things are probably still in there, like the dialogue stance system and a lot of organization and working on helping out with that. So I have pride for my behind the scenes stuff, but I'm sure any of the other like characters that I initially created are like unrecognizable. So it's just like I have made my peace. The time has
Oh.
passed.
Yeah, and it just goes on to talk about how whilst you were doing that, you started helping with Neverwinter Nights 2, the two different expansions. You had two different roles, working on the cancelled Aliens RPG, to the point in October when you moved to Seattle, and then you joined AreaNet and began working on the personal story for Guild Wars 2.
Yes. The
So
funny
when it's
thing is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off
I was gonna
there.
say, when it says personal stories, does that just mean like the main like starting point for the characters?
Yeah, they Guild Wars 2 made sure to, or ArenaNet wanted to make sure that the when I was applying there, the phrase they pitched to me is putting the RPG back in MMORPG. They wanted like player choices to matter, and I went from like, oh, this would be cool to work on, to please let me work on your game. This sounds awesome. I would like to be a part of it. So they wanted to actually make it like, it starts in 5 different places depending on the character race that you
Yeah.
choose. You make these decisions about your background and everything. So they sort of separated that into, that was the personal story, these choices and these sort of instance content that you had. And then there was this sort of open world with events and things like that, and like trying to make sure we connected those two. But we were kind of on, in terms of development, parallel tracks. Like the events in the world team was much bigger. So like the personal story team was super small. It was for a AAA MMO. It was for the personal story team. It was 2 writers, embedded QA, and 6 designers. Like that's it. And we had to beg, borrow, and steal for assets from the events team or anybody that we could get, which was like, that was how a lot of early projects at Obsidian were. So I was like, ah, yes, I know this. I can do this just fine. But yeah, it was a really neat time. It was a really fun game to work on. One of my favorite settings that I've ever worked in is Tyria.
Then goes on, mentions your work for Astroneer after you left them, several other games such as The Passenger, Unpacking, to then rejoining AreaNet as a senior game designer for Guild Wars 2.
Yeah, that was, like it skips a second in there where when I left ArenaNet in 2013, I was at Bungie working on Destiny for 10 months, and then I left to work to go indie and work at Double Bear from about 2014 to
Oh, so
2017
no, I
or
did miss that.
so.
It says
Oh,
you were it said from 2013 to 2014 you worked as a game designer for Bungie, and then you became a full-time member of Double Bear from April 2014 to January 2018 is what it says.
I'm like, wow, they're precise. Somebody was straight up looking at my resume there. The dates. But yeah, that is accurate. It was
Yeah.
um neat. It was a heck of a thing to like. I thought it would be a massive change going from that small personal story team to Bungie, which was then huge and now is probably even more huge, still huge. It was like Iridinet wasn't a small company. It was like 175 people when I left, but like Bungie was like 500,
Yeah.
and it's headquartered in this renovated movie theater, like modern movie theater. So the ceiling is like, a mile ahead of you. It's this cavernous kind of room, and everything is kept really quiet and very dark. And everybody wants to take you out to lunch, which I was not used to doing. So I'd come back from lunch, full and tired, and everything's whisper quiet. And I'm like, don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep at your desk. Come on. That was a very interesting experience. And then switching back to indie and working on projects that were very different in tone. Yeah, jumping over to Astroneer was really cool. It was a very, very different experience going from a very narrative heavy career to there's no talking in the game. And it's procedurally generated. How do you tell a story in a procedurally generated kind of situation was a very interesting challenge. And then just the experience of like jumping back to ArenaNet and, how's this game doing 7 years on, and wanting to see what I could do. To the danger with having a game with a very involved story that kind of evolves over time is that just sort of makes the starting point seem further and further away for people to jump in. It's more and more intimidating. Like somebody telling you that, oh, this series is super great and it's been going for like 9 seasons, and somebody being like, you gotta watch it, and being like, I have to catch up on 9 seasons though. That's
That
that's
that'd
an
be like
investment.
it'd be like starting to watch Supernatural now.
Yeah. Oh, that yes, that's good and kind of toned. But yeah, I was like, how to, and so many like mechanics and everything get
Yeah.
layered on, and trying to figure out how to make that accessible to players, especially with like, oh, we're getting a new expansion coming out. This hopefully can be an opportunity to teach some of these that we just sort of folded in over time. And a lot of people had been there for a really long time and were like, oh, what do you mean you don't know how to do this particular thing? Like, we taught you how to do it and blah. I'm like, all right, I'm coming in after not playing this for a really long time. If I who knew this game at the beginning cannot figure this shit out, like, we should probably,
Teach it.
ease the transition and teach that a little bit more. So I think that worked out really well for End of Dragons. I work on a lot of things that has the word dragons in it that you might have known,
All
dragon
has to
related
do with
stuff.
dragons, yeah.
Yeah.
So, out of the games, even the ones that we haven't mentioned, which is your favorite one that you've worked on from a narrative point of view?
Oh my gosh, narrative. That's really difficult.
Yeah, we ask all the tough questions. There's more coming.
You're asking me to choose between my children, sir. I think I have a soft spot for Dead State because it was a moment where it's like, like a lot of times when you're talking to NPCs, it's just sort of like everything's kind of light. You're just talking to somebody in a village, and these are people who are dependent on you, who are in this very grim kind of situation. You have to write these emotional death scenes for them. Like, I think at one point I described it as kind of being like if you were bit by a zombie, it was kind of like a situation if you were like got by an alien. Like you've got a ticking clock. Like that kind of uh emotional kind of moment of like, well, you're going to die, etc. And because I worked on aliens for all of 3 weeks, I got denied the chance of those like emotional moments of pathos. I brought that over to Dead State, and those are really great, and difficult to write. But it was like after that, we were kind of all emotionally just like wrung out. So then it was nice to jump to something completely ridiculous. So it was like there's two halves of the coin there. Like the drama of Dead State, and then the straight up ridiculousness of Panic at Multiverse High. That was just like a kind of throw whatever like random funny shit at the wall that you can think of and see what works. So I consider those two as kind of part of it, as diametrically opposed or as dramatically different as it's possible to be. But I love them all. I'm gonna be a dick about that and keep saying like I love them all. Oh, I can't hear you. Sorry, I dropped
No,
out.
that'll be me.
There we go.
Um, Now you're gonna have a really tough choice because I'm
Oh
gonna make you pick between all your games till we have one winner.
man, you didn't tell me this was like a bracket system.
Yep. So the first one might be an easy one for
I should
you.
have a drink.
So we got Legend of the Five Rings or Legacy of Dragonholt.
Oh, okay. That one is a little bit easier because it was I did a lot more work on Legend of the Five Rings.
Okay.
The lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue. Like Dragonhold was really interesting, and I feel like I worked on that one a little bit more. With like the systems in the game and how to like the behind the scenes on like writing stuff. Like I introduced the team to Twine in terms of like how to branch stuff before it was like Word documents and the hyperlinks, and those just, not fun, very bad. But Legend of the Five Rings was an interesting challenge like that. I never worked on anything like that because not only was it like, lore this much, but also, oh, we're throwing a lot of that out. So here's the new version, but you should pay attention to the old version too. And I'd never written on anything that was that lore and larger system kind of dependent. Like, I deliberately picked to write like the Crab Clan because they're very straightforward. I'm like, if there's any entry point I can have into writing this, it's the people who are like, we're gonna hang out on the wall and we're gonna like kill the bad guys, and everybody else is just sort of hanging out there, like, cool, you did that, and they have their own resentments about that. And I was like, I can dig right into that. That's good. So yeah, L5R for me. I would happily wait.
Okay.
more stuff
Second
for them.
second bracket, Guild Wars 2 or Neverwinter Nights 2?
Man,
Expansions
you
included.
just put the heavies right up against. You didn't softball this or walk this one in for me at all. Ah, shit. Because for me, it's like Guild Wars 2 has very different eras. Like
Yep.
the personal story experience was very different than me coming back in 2019 and working on the Living World slash that expansion. Like I really love Tyria, that setting. I think it's really cool. The charm, my babies, big toothy lion guys, yeah. But I'm also just a huge fucking D&D nerd, and I really love Faerun, and I haven't gotten a chance to, like, work in that setting since, and it was such a big swing at the time in 2008 to have, put me as the sort of, like, main writer voice on Storm of Zehir. Um, my god, everything in that is, like, first draft, and I would love to go back and, like, edit shit then.
Well,
I'd
we'll
like
dive
to.
into that a bit later on in a bit more
Oh,
depth because I have some questions for you
yay!
regarding that.
So I'm like, "Yeah, you're cutting deep,
So,
man. You're cutting deep
which one
here."
are we
Yeah.
picking? Neverwinter
We're
Nights or
picking
Guild
Neverwinter
Wars?
Nights too.
Fair
I would
enough.
love to go back and
Right.
work in that setting. I would like to it was the first chance I had to do, like, lead design stuff. I have voice acting in that. So if you've heard Cheer Dark Flame, hey, yeah. Yeah, I gotta go Neverwinter Nights too on that.
Unpacking or Astroneer?
Unpacking. I gotta go
Nice,
Unpacking, right? I
nice
mean, like,
simple one.
big hearts to Astroneer, but Unpacking changed my whole life and was such a an awesome game to work on, and the team was so great, and I think that game had a lot of meaning to a lot of people. Not to say that Astroneer didn't, but Unpacking it's different. And like I've got some ink, and I'm not gonna show this tattoo because it's on my ankle, and that would require some big moves, as they say. But I actually have an Unpacking inspired tattoo, and out of all the games I've worked on, I'm like, that one felt appropriate. Which is not to
Nice.
say I won't get a badass dragon on me sometime at some point, but for right now, that is the game that is important enough to me that I've actually had it permanently put on my skin in some fashion. So
Uh,
it's hard to beat that.
well, the last first round bracket would be Destiny or Dead State.
Dead State.
Okay.
Like, Destiny was awesome. I was only on it for 10 months. Dead State was something that I worked on since founding Double Bear, which was like I was working part time at Double Bear from its inception, like till I was full time. So like 2009 to 2014 was like stealth working on stuff. So Dead State, even though I wrote 10 out of the 40 characters or so in it, I came up with half of them, like worked on the systems and everything. That was like, the thing that's the closest to your heart where you're like, if this succeeds or fails, it's not anybody else's fault. It's because I screwed up at some point down the line. I didn't do something right, which is amazing and scary and like hard to match for anybody.
Right. Now, just instant first answers for
No,
these last few. Dead State or Unpacking?
I Unpacking was I would think it's gonna win that one because as I said, as fun as it was to write sometimes emotionally wrenching stuff, it was also fun to not have to write that and instead think about objects and what they mean to us in our lives and go through that and that kind of new experience. It was not so wrenching, and although it wasn't as like intensely stab in the heart personal between those two games, if you were like you can write a sequel to either or be involved in the sequel to either, Unpacking, yes, that I would like to go for. So sorry, Dead
Neverwinter
State.
Nights 2 or Legend of the Five Rings?
Neverwinter 2. Neverwinter 2. L5R is cool and it was fun to write for that, but like Neverwinter 2, I was involved in so much more of the different aspects of that game. Also, like, I will be real, I never played any of the collectible card game of L5R because I was like, this shit is way too hard. I don't know anybody else who I can like. You also have to persuade other people to get in with you on like a CCG, and I'm like, I don't know any of my friends. I might risk, hey, do you want to get on this investment of a bunch of cards with me and try to play this very complicated game? Like, my ass can't handle magic. I, I was not gonna try to get people in on something more complicated. Great backstory. I would still like to learn how to do it one day, but in terms of like ease of jumping back into and like getting involved with the world, like Neverwinter 2. Easy.
Neverwinter Nights or Unpacking?
Gonna go Neverwinter 2 here. Love Unpacking, but it was also like a very personal story versus like, here's the world of Faerun. It's a larger, I like a big playground. Give me the big playground, por favor. Man, I should have brought a drink.
Do you want to go get one? It's fine. We can
No,
pause for
no,
2
I'm
seconds.
cool. I'm cool. I'll have a little sip. I mean, like an old fashioned.
A hard drink.
Yes, but it is 12:30, and it would be,
It's
not
fine.
professional. It's not actually a podcast. It's torture. Sorry. I mean, that means you're doing your job, right? Giving the people what they want, just turning the vice a little.
So you have the I'm not sure if we can class it as a privilege or just a torture, pure torture experience of being the first writer on the podcast.
Yay!
So you get to trial run some things for me.
I'm
So
ready.
first segment I have for you. It's called Dialogue Crimes. What is the most cursed or unhinged dialogue choice that you have ever either written yourself or seen?
Okay, scene is almost like unfair because of course I'm gonna go with that, and that's like the Baldur's Gate 3 lick the spider or have the like insane like drink the terrifying liquid that this bloated undead guy is like pouring you a drink of. Like, yeah, sure. Those are licking a dead spider is like how to beat that. I may have one where somebody goes, sure, I would like you to make me into a house. Like, I'll join my spirit to be part of this haunted house. I hope that goes through in work I've done, but even then, there's like, make me a house and lick a dead spider, and yeah, I gotta give it to the spider and
Gotta
Larian
give it
on
to
that
the
one.
spider. Yep.
It's gonna be really
Oh,
hard to beat a lot of BG3 stuff. I should almost just like push that off the board and like put as a disclaimer. Otherwise, it's just gonna be like the 2023 Game Awards, and it's just gonna fucking win everything, deservedly so. But yeah,
how, so Larian have outright stated that that's it for them. They're not doing any more BG3. They're not going down that, which I'm ever so thankful for. They're not going
yeah,
down the whole DLC route here, spend more money to get more content. They've made a very solid game, and they've now stated they're not going to do like Baldur's Gate 4. They're not going to work with wizards. They're just going to go back to their own stuff.
yeah.
How hard is that choice going to be? Like, Divinity is a fantastic game in its own right,
Mhm.
and I was playing them before they even announced Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah,
But
same.
Baldur's Gate is what put them on the global map in terms of CRPGs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's definitely true, but I think it's also kind of I saw an article title that was like that looped in like Arrowhead to that, and they're like Divinity and Helldivers 1 or Magicka walked so that BG3 and Helldivers 2 could fly. And it's like the sort of, lifeline or the lure of these studios is like they're leading in a direction. Like I think that the humor, the development sort of method and everything of Arrowhead was the only thing that could have led to Helldivers 2. And I feel like the familiarity with stuff like early access and having such a strongly iterative, openly iterative design process for Larian is like that made BG3 possible, but I don't think they would have jumped into BG3. It's me talking out my ass because I'm not Larian. I'm not spending,
No, no,
but
100%. Personal
but
opinion.
I feel like that was almost just like tapping the top of a mountain to be like, okay, we can do that, so we can go back to some place that we think that is a little more our own. I think I don't know. I'm not going to be the person who's just like fifth edition D&D is so accessible because like it's still D&D. It's still like difficult for some folks, but like. I don't know. I don't think that they're making a mistake being able to work on their own thing, and I also understand the
But
kind of allure of it. But yeah, I mean, like
not having Hasbro breathing down your neck.
well, yes, there's definitely that. Like dealing with IP holders is like that can vary wildly from like,
Yeah.
oh, we have a good working relationship to every day I dread looking at my email kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
I imagine it was probably hopefully hopefully a little bit, better than than the latter for them. But yeah, being
So
able to have
you
something that's more your
just said
own.
that Divinity walking so Baldur's Gate could fly. I am scared for what that potentially means for Divinity Original Sin 3.
That they've done some really wacky shit before, like Dragon Commander. So I think that they definitely have a studio that shows that they're not afraid to do some like have outlets for weirder shit if they so feel like it. If they released like a freaking Otome game set in the Divinity universe where it was just like date people, I would almost not be surprised because it's just like they can do what they want. They have what I think some people will call fuck off money at this point. But I think it's also just like opening the doors to like they because I know people are gonna come along with them for the ride. They aren't gonna be like,
Yeah.
"Well, we're unhappy that you're not making a carbon copy of the stuff that you've made before." There are enough people with them that I think would still be excited about that, even if it is not exactly like anything that they've seen before. I think to me the question is how different, Divinity 3 would be from 2, less how much like it's or how much like Baldur's Gate 3 it's gonna be like, if that makes any sense. But I'm just sort of like, whatever you guys want to do, I'm here. I'm on board for it. Like they're the sort of gleaming success story of the industry that I wish more places were able to follow. But but yeah, I now I kind of want a Divinity Otome game. I planted that seed in their mind. It's my fault. Everybody knows that now. I'll take the
Uh,
blame.
Before we jump into the meat of Neverwinter, I have a community question for you
Ooh.
regarding Destiny. So LSD has asked that from what he could tell, the narrative was whilst you were there was completely overhauled to make the gameplay less linear.
Yes.
And he said, wants to know what sort of challenges did you face in the rewrite, particularly with some of the main characters like Crow or Aldrin Sov, as their first iteration is completely different to how they were then portrayed afterwards.
Somebody knows the deep lore, and I'm impressed about that.
Yeah, he's my Destiny go-to man.
The funny thing is I was not on the writing team, and back in the day, from like what I remember and from what I can tell now, there was a vast sea change between how writing was handled at Bungie. Like writing was very siloed off from design in the early stages, which explains why, the first iterations of the story were just these super linear kind of experiences that were about all the other characters, and like the idea of the main character hardly got any sort of play in that at all, because trying to actually write for a what is essentially a cipher was not something that anybody in the writing team, or at least the lead of the writing team, was as familiar with. Like it's hard to do. And as I could see later on, I think starting at one of the later X packs for Destiny, they started bringing in actual narrative designers. Like they brought in that particular blend and tried to make it more incorporated. But yeah, the big story switch was a battlefield switch that happened within a week. It was crazy. It was a very difficult like switch over. There were elements of the story that stayed the same, and there were ones that I think they called her Hecate, like she was like the stranger or something like that. They took her out. She was a main part of the first game, and in the rewrite, she was just like off the board. It's like, where did she go? Okay. Like I was a little bit like, well, okay, that kind of fleshes all the female characters that we have appearing in like the whole first part of the game, so that's a thing. But that was something I saw sort of from the sidelines. My role was kind of weird because I was on the public events team, and a lot of what I ended up doing in addition to designing the events was actually working with the writing team, teaching them how to write in a multiplayer kind of environment, like for events text. Like, all right, so you're hanging out in this area and the war set thing comes down and like you're fighting things. What do I hear as a player who comes in on this event? Like I didn't hear all the stuff that was said before. What do I hear? When do we get updates, etc.? And like that player here, what do I hear as this was like an entirely new kind of writing experience for the writing team there. And it's like, yeah, I had to go through that too. Like there's a point where you have to fully recalibrate your brain from writing in a single player situation to a multiplayer one. on the level of, like, speaking a different language, like, the deep structures have to change in how you react to situations, so I spent a lot of time doing that particular thing. Like, the linear story was beyond my grasp. I just got to sit from the sidelines and watch that happen. But I ended up writing all of the in a shit, we go into recording in 3 days, how much, like, temp text can you write, Annie? So I wrote all of the patrols and all of the text for, the events, and I don't know how much I changed them, so I don't know if I can say, "Oh, I wrote a line that Nathan Fillion, said," or not, but I wrote the beginning of one, I guess. It's weird. That's game development. Is sort of like, well, I know I contributed, a carrot to the stew, and then I just sort of put it on a counter and went, okay, and like left, and hopefully that carrot's in the stew somewhere. But when it's sort of all mixed up in there, there's only so many points where you can kind of tell if that's the case or not. I didn't liken game development to making stew. That's the thing I did. I'm not gonna walk away from it now. Now you've
Uh,
seen. Now you know. It's like forbidden
s-
knowledge. I'm sorry I can't give like
so
more of a deep insight on that one.
no,
I
it's
could just be
fine.
like, you detected correctly that the story change was an oh shit kind of thing and happened pretty rapidly. And I think that in the X packs and stuff like that, there was a lot of, in addition to storytelling, a lot of cleaning up some past stuff and trying to learn lessons on the fly. So the fact that things turned out as well as they did is like, that team was awesome. Like, they pulled their shit together in such a crazy impressive way. So major kudos to them too. I don't mean to be like, "And here's your dirty laundry, guys."
So rolling into the next segment, working title Forbidden Lore Drop. What is one lore, detail, story thread, something that you have written that didn't make it into the final game, but you still think about
That's
for
that's also
anything?
that's like a creepier version of like, "Oh, you're making me choose between my children," kind of thing. One thing I admittedly had some fun with, I'm gonna reach far backwards, is in Storm of Zehir, there was the first area that you appear in is Samarak, is like worship the goddess of illusions that was supposedly dead. And I went, well, what do you do when you have a deity that is built on lies and illusions? And, her portfolio was stolen. Like, what if she just faked her death and tried to muddy the waters a little bit in a very small way? Like, I could say on paper, oh, it's just this particular innkeeper that doesn't quite believe she's dead. But the fact that I got some people in the community going, wait, is Lyra not fucking dead? Is she actually alive? I thought Siri killed her. Like, that weird little bit of lore, that uncertainty, I could kind of see it into it, was like, please become something. And then I think they did a like from 4th edition to 5th edition, oopsie table flip. Everybody's back now kind of thing. So I think Lyra is alive now. But the thing that I still hope, is carried through is that she never actually died. Because divinity and deities in the Forgotten Realms setting, there are so many of them. It's so weird. The
Yep.
portfolios are crazy. You can kill one and the guy and take all of it, or you can, I guess, steal some followers and take part of it. Like, there's legalities to that are just kind
Yep.
of bonkers. So yeah, I wanted to make Lyra secretly alive, and I never formally approached Wizards of the Coast about that one, although they did let me have a different epithet for Umberlee because her only one at the time was the sea bitch, and her producer did not want me to say bitch in the game. So I had to write like the Queen of the Waves or something like that. When you see Umberlee worshippers pop up in BG3 and they call her a different epithet, I was like, did I write that one? I can't fucking remember. At least there's like a tiny little bit of like, maybe. But Lyra, the minor goddess, actually secretly being alive is what I'm still hoping somebody fucking remembers. Because I have it in my heart still.
And the other one is oops, distracted by side quests.
That's my
Have you
life.
ever planned a serious, meaningful story arc only to have it completely overshadowed by a dumb side plot that spiraled out of control?
A lot of times it's me doing that. um,
But like even
Jeez.
when you're writing, have you ever started off something serious and it's just gone completely? the other way?
Oh my god, I wish I could throw out like a beautiful, perfect example. I think the closest I could think of is in the personal story for Sylvari in Guild Wars 2. The Sylvari were set up by the original creator to be based really heavily on Arthurian legend, like these dramatic, formal, elegant plant people, who are like their stuff is like the Green Knight and things like that. And when it comes to translating Arthurian legend to actual playable gameplay, kind of is difficult and sucks. So we took something Lena Chappelle and I, the other designer, she's amazing, started digging into this thing and just went, okay, because every quest had like splits, and we couldn't really square how to make this thing still be serious. So between these two brothers, both of their quests became kind of ridiculous. Like you're shaking somebody down, or you're making a lot of frog puns to make a frog guy really angry. And that was one. There was also a human quest in which I was like, I know you're supposed to get information from these guys, but instead of fighting these bandits, does anybody remember Monkey Island and all the different things to do there? Like the insult fighting and all the different like trials there. I just like went all in on that. Like, okay, now we're gonna do this ridiculous ass question my way and do these completely different things. Like fighting, you're gonna have to throw random things at this NPC instead. Like I've made it unique now. Have fun. So I had multiple times in which it was like on a serious moment probably wouldn't be as enticing to play as a gameplay, so I'll make it kind of dumb. There we go. I fixed it. That's my best.
Jumping into Neverwinter Nights 2, you were the lead writer for Storm of Zehir. How does that work in terms of developing the game? Like, do you go in with a base story and be like, look, guys, this is what we're doing?
That one was a very chaotic development. It was 9 months. The core story changed early on, and a lot of the main path was it came down to like Wizards of the Coast, the lead designer and the producers trying to figure this out, what they wanted to do with it. And a lot of times it was like pivots and like stepping stones that had to get like polished and cleared up along the way. And a lot of that too was going, okay, this game is about mostly the side quests, but we still should make the main quest kind of interesting. Having to go back through there admittedly later than I would have liked to make the thread of the story follow a little bit better. Like if people have assessed that it seems to kind of drop out a little bit at Act One after you leave Samarak, you are correct. That was a problem that happened, and we were figuring out a lot of stuff in that game about like how open do we want to make this, because by contrast, the previous X-Pac Mask of the Betrayer was such an involved story and so like had such a strong narrative through line. As I said to somebody, it was like coming after Empire Strikes Back and be like, "Yeah, you have teddy bears, put them in the game, make this happen. Things have to be sillier, like and a little bit more all over the place," and that was intimidating. But I was also at the same time making multiple modules in the game, helping like make how the new items looked, redo how the crafting system went. That was a cautionary tale where it's like you can do this when you're 27. I wrote most of that game in a fugue state, kind of, because there was so much work to be done. I crunched on it like crazy. A lot of people did, and I can point back at that and be like, that is not how you should make a game. I can look back at mistakes then and just be like, it's a wonder that any game gets out. As a friend of mine, Mike Stout said, is that games don't really get finished; they're just released, and that was sort of a good kind of proof of that. Was yeah, just kind of writing a lot of documents, getting things changed a lot, and then at least knowing the kind of through line of where we wanted the player to just go. Sometimes it is like the beginning, they're here. The middle, they're gonna be here. And we've got to get them over here somewhere. Was a core thing. There were questions early on about whether or not the player would even go back to the Sword Coast. There were questions about if it was gonna end in the Sword Coast, but it was like we've hardly been in Samrak. It's gotta end in Samrak or somewhere in there. So like a lot of pivots happened during development. And I wouldn't say that's typical of a lot of games development. It shouldn't be. shit was a little crazy. But yeah, that is how it went, and that's also why I really want to return to the setting and the whatnot to be able to be like, okay, now over the course of 15 years or so, my brain has built up a big long wish list of like if I could do it again or if I was in that situation again, what I would improve, what I would do right, and I'd love to unleash that on a project and poor unsuspecting fellow designers didn't know how much I've got built up from this. But TLDR, was crazy.
So, Neverwinter Nights 2 has just been re-released on Steam and consoles as of 2 or 3 days ago, I believe.
Yeah, I legit until yesterday morning did not know it was coming out on consoles and was like, "Whoa, okay."
Yep, it's also now available on Steam, which it wasn't
Yeah.
previously.
I was just like, "Good luck with that controller setup. Holy crap." I don't know how they're gonna.
I have not played Neverwinter Nights or Neverwinter Nights 2. I've played Neverwinter.
Mm,
So I bought it, I downloaded it, made my character, started off, and then the movement controls are so unintuitive in comparison to modern day games.
yeah, I'm betting I was like, "Ooh, it's gonna show its age."
Yeah.
It's gonna in
Well,
a big
it's
way.
nothing a couple of key bindings can't fix, but the fact that movement keys are on ASWD and camera keys are on your arrows is like, I'm just gonna swap a few things around, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But so hopefully this game is about to have a whole influx of people who haven't experienced this before, especially with how popular D&D has become with Baldur's
Yeah.
Gate, Critical Role. What would you say to people that are about to try Neverwinter Nights 2 and the expansions for the first time?
Be kind, it was a different time. It's 2006 when that game came out. Just keep that in mind. I don't know. It was a sort of situation where uh Neverwinter the OG campaign of Neverwinter 2 went through three different lead designers, which is always a good sign of a thing going well. It was also really chaotic. Like, the core I'm also like, I wish I knew how Asper did it. Also, I know that there are multiple people at Digimancy, not just me, we're like, "We wish they'd called us." 'Cause a lot of us there worked on the first games, and we're like, "I wanted to be involved." We gotta go back to that. But the sort of inner guts of those games were like striations, like looking at like the like a canyon in the Badlands of all the different levels because it's like there was code in there from '97, from like the beginning
Oh,
of the first Neverwinter Nights. Like we had a junior programmer on the team for Storm as a here. Like this was one of his first, if not his first game, and he was going to be digging in that code. And I was like, send me the funniest comments that you find as like a measure to try to keep the poor young man sane. Just send me the craziest shit you find. And there's some winners in there. Programmers commenting when they're really pissed off are just like somebody had talked to at my time at Obsidian maybe twice, had some of the best lines there. I was like, I've never heard Frank say more than a sentence, and this is just like this code is everything that's wrong with the world. So yeah, striations. There's a lot of architecture there that made it difficult to get the game out with particulars the first time. Looking at what's there is like, I don't know how much of that was rebuilt to the extent that it's rebuilt. So the the be kindness that I have is like that was built on some rough ground to begin with, and like I doubt time has been kind to it. But hopefully the talents of the people at Asper and if I'm pronouncing that right, sorry if I'm not, and a very cool community with patches and whatnot has probably improved stuff quite a bit. But playing an old game is kind of like watching an old movie. And going like there were different expectations at the time. Things are just gonna be like janky, and if they had a turn-based mode in there, I would fucking love that. Because turn-based with pause is always difficult. Like I spent most of my game just hitting the space bar, clicking a bunch and space bar and clicking a bunch. So yeah, take your time with it, and please be very forgiving to the run-on sentences all over Storm was here. That's the worst part. I look back through that and go, Christ, Annie, use a period. or a comma. Come on. There's other punctuation, other ways you could be putting this. And like Alexander Brandon, who did the voice of Volo, who's the narrator for Storm of Zehir, uh, you know, made it playfully plain in more than a couple of points where he was reading something was just like, this is so hard to read aloud because I have to find out where I can safely take a breath in this nonsense. And I was like, I'm sorry. I needed at least one more editing run, but I want somebody to send me the actual word count. Please, somebody of Storm of Zahir, because I genuinely don't know what it is. And like I said, I wrote a lot of that game in a fugue state because it's like 40 hours and we did that in 9 months. And I had to the party conversation system, the mechanic for that was like brand new to those games. It was 26, basically like, we're gonna do it this way, figure out how to do it, and like I hope it stands up well still. Because if you want a bunch of examples about how it's been done better, it's like all of Larian. Yeah. All of Larian's where it's
So
done much the checks are so much better. I wish I could see how they do it.
before you started on Neverwinter Nights, how much experience did you have with D&D? Is that something you got into because of Neverwinter?
No, I it's another fun like, ludicrous
Because
Annie kid story. Even like back when I was 9, my friends were my brother and his friends were playing D&D and I wanted to join, but they let me they said if I sat in the corner, didn't say anything. That was the only way in which little sister could stay. And I wanted to play and they also were like the box says 10 and up, not 10. So you can't. On my 10th birthday, though, I grabbed the box and walked over to my brother and was like, now I would like to play. So that is stubborn young nerd.
and was that
And
3rd edition?
no,
2nd.
bless. You're so sweet. that was red box. That was D&D basic.
Ooh.
So I started out with the most basic. I was 10, so
So you've
kind
seen
table.
every single edition of D&D through and through.
Not like since the 70s, but yeah, I've seen I've seen some. I had a gap in my life from like I didn't.
Was it 4th edition?
No, sir. I had a gap from second edition. I didn't get involved with like AD&D in second edition and stuff like that because um I was a D&D playing friend up through early high school and then kind of dropped off from that. And by the time I was in college, it was 3.0.
Yeah.
And I was in a couple games in college and one just out of college. So I saw that 3.0 to 3.5 change. And Neverwinter 2 was the first 3.5 game. So I came on pretty good footing and I got to see the sort of like everything was all about prestige classes and then everybody went, no, we're going to do base classes now, and it things got
Yeah.
really crazy. And yeah, the gap in my career of dealing with D&D was like 4th edition. So yes, you were accurate there. A little
So
earlier than predicted.
4th edition came out just before Storm of Zahir, from what I've
Yeah. I think
and,
short.
like, what I don't understand is the criticism behind Storm of Zahir for not adapting to 4th edition when the rest of the game is written at 3.5. That
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense to me.
that
Yeah,
would be in 2 words, 2 impolite words. Fucking impossible. We would have
yep,
had to build the whole. I mean, like 4th ed is so vastly different from 3rd ed that it made enough people pissed off enough that Pathfinder was made. That whole setting, which I heard described as like D&D 3.75. Like
yep,
that's a big ideological split there. Like trying that's how different it was philosophically by the rules, etc. There's would be no 9 months, man. We had 9 months to and all of the assets from the previous game and X packs and stuff like that. There would be no conceivable way to make an expansion based on like 4th edition stuff. Also, I think it would have made like thrown everybody who expected the 3.5 for a very unpleasant loop. But we did. There were, I think, one of the bounced around titles or subtitles naming the game was a huge pain. I'm still just like, I really wish we hadn't called it Storm of Zahir because it's supposed to be a secret that Zahir is the bad guy. Then we put his name in the damn title. Also, don't acronym your game accidentally something like SOS, like you're apologizing to people for the game. That's a problem. And
Um,
now it's really hard to name games in general. It's really hard to name expansions because I challenge anybody to find expansions that are not naming a place or blank of blank or blank of the blank because it's everywhere. It's
yep.
everywhere. So Whispers of the Spell Plague was something that was going to be tossed out as an idea, and I was like, "Well, when's the spell plague happening?" They're like, "In like 100 years, game time wise." I'm like, why are there whispers of it then? It seems like it's a bit early. So a lot of fourth ed stuff was fomenting and wanted to have little mentions of it. There's like an insane mind flayer that's, had been part of the weave that's seeing all these apocalyptic things coming. There's somebody in Samarak that's like a doomsayer that's foretelling like the death of a Mistra. So there's hints in there. But like that's the most we could do. The biggest thing that we have is actually Zehir. Like they wanted Zehir to be a big deal, unsurprising with the title and whatnot, but like supplanting the Yuan-Ti gods. Oh man, I can't concentrate. There's cute puppets.
Yep. This is Loki. He's my co-host. He occasionally interrupts me, but he's normally very good.
I'm just gonna take a pupper's appreciation moment. Loki
Yep.
is best boy. Oh man.
You good boy. Yep.
But the thing of Pride Out is that they gave us a lot of leeway to design some stuff with Zahir, and the cover of Storm of Zahir, the like skull and the snake done by Justin Cherry, phenomenal artist, but they let me design what the thing would be. And so I had this terrible little sketch that I took to one of the best concept artists in the world, and I was like, it's like he's like murder and poison. So I was thinking like a skull, and then there's like a snake around it that's like kind of like that. That is how I work with artists. And he made a picture so awesome it entirely broke the rule that it had on all Neverwinter Nights, like 1 and 2 up to that point, which was the box is just black and it just has the title. Like that one was so badass that they're
They
like,
put
no,
it on the box.
snake with a skull is going on the box. Uh, I'm I'm proud of the little bit that I had to do with that, but it was all Justin Cherry Divbed making that look so
It's your idea. Just take all the
phenomenal.
credit.
Yep, I did that all myself, except for all the art part.
So I've had a few developers on that talk about the relationship working with publishers.
Mhm.
How much does that change when there's a completely separate third party that own the IP?
Honestly, I think it's I think there's less difference than you think because a lot of times, at least in my experience in working with a publisher, they kind of own the IP. Like in order to make for a lot of publishing deals, part of it, at least, as much as I was party to, publishing it includes giving them the rights to the IP. So that's why sometimes you'll see, developer A started this series and then it was handed off to developer B. And the one time I could be like that wasn't the case was when I was interviewing with Bungie and they said, "Yeah, we're working with Activision and we have the IP rights of Destiny still." And I was like, "What? How? Wow, you guys have them over a barrel, don't you?" So that was during the respawn time. That was the like. If anybody wants to look back at the how with Infinity Ward and everything there, it was very timely. But yeah, it is a sort of situation a lot of times where the relationship between publishers and developers can be pretty precarious. Ideally, it is a good working one, and certainly I've been part of those. But in terms of like owning the IP versus not, like that is a rarity. I've seen that happen the most where developers keep their IP for like indie publishers and stuff like that because they know a lot more what it's like to deal with these things. They thrive a lot more on keeping kind of closer business relations with devs rather than like you are one of many you submit to us kind of things where like an publisher can do that, which is not to say that that's the case always, but yeah, it's a kind of difficult situation when you're dealing with a publisher and an IP holder, as was the case with that, because it was like Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast and Atari. There were sometimes things that Wizards of the Coast was cool with, but Hasbro wasn't cool with. There were some things that Atari wanted that Wizards was on, and a lot of that stuff kind of were fights above my pay grade, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, The more cooks in the kitchen, especially on the higher levels, the more it's going to be kind of risks being fraught.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think it is a rarer situation though when you find that the IP holder and the publisher are not one and the same. That's from like more strictly licensed stuff. I imagine like movies and things like that that I have less experience with. Like, it can be rough, buddy. That's my shorthand.
Well,
It's
hopefully
difficult.
that's
It's quite a
something I never have to
difficult.
experience firsthand.
Yeah, that was like, wow, it looks real bad up there. Back to work. I only knew a little, sensed a tiny bit about the chaos that was going on with, in the beginning, the dawn of my career with Taxi Driver. And because Majesco was, I can talk crap on them now because they don't exist anymore, but they were crap at communication to begin with. They were like, things are fine with the IP because they bought the rights to it. And we only found out later that Scorsese and De Niro were like, we don't want this to get made. We will give you other IPs, like, leave this alone. Like, they went from, they're fine to, no, they're not. Really, no, they're not at all, in a very big way, which is why the one year the game actually showed at E3 2005, that wasn't actually young Robert De Niro's face on the main character. It was one of the designers there that got like scanned in and had the face change at the last minute, who kind of looked like young Robert De Niro. So like it wasn't a, well, they didn't get the likeness down properly. It was, no, there were some serious issues with that likeness
Dear,
being legal or not. Yeah, that fraught. Fraught is the word I would use to put it really mildly, right?
dear. Just before we start wrapping up, what is one setting that you'd love to write a game for that you
Oh my
haven't
gosh.
done already?
Legit, I would love a crack at Star Wars. I was a Star Wars kid. I know it's like everybody has some sort of like fatigue about the setting now, but I mean, high school, I went real Star Wars nerd in high school. I knew the Jedi Oath. I made my Jedi to cosplay. I read the Timothy Zahn books, the stuff that they're calling like Legends now or something like that. I knew so much about that setting. And honestly, the one thing that irritated me about stuff going forward is that everything was about the Skywalkers. And I'm like, but it's so much bigger. The universe is so much more diverse. And I mean, and then like KOTOR came out and SWOTOR came out. And there was a time where I think it was Star Wars 1313. There were games coming out that were going to come out that were about a wider world in the Star Wars universe that got canceled because they just wanted to focus on the movies for a while. There were some heartbreakers in there that I'd been following. But yeah, there's a lot to that universe. It's an old love of mine. It broke my heart in the prequels and like and the sequels I'm like, but like the Mandalorian's so fucking cool and Andor and like there's so much interesting meat there still. And I would really like a chance to like dig in and maybe do give my own little contribution to that. I mean, talk about having an IP that's very rigidly managed.
Yeah.
But I think I could swim in that sea. I think I could do pretty well.
Did you join Obsidian after Knights of the Old Republic 2 was released, or were you there
I
whilst that was
did.
still in production?
I was there after. That was a like,
Mm.
oh, okay, okay. I'm gonna be honest about another one. Fallout. I would really fucking love to do Fallout. Fallout 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. There was a funny vibe in joining Obsidian because like I got to see the like vertical slice of Van Buren, what was going to be Fallout 3, and like actually play through that. And I got to read all the documents about it and everything. And there was a sort of sense of like, oh man, if only like this is our heritage. A lot of ex Black Isle people there. That was a kind of vibe. And when it got sold to Bethesda, it was like, oh well, we're not going to do Fallout 3. And then I left, and then they did New Vegas. It was just like, shit. I'm there after Star Wars
And
and
before New
before
Vegas.
New Vegas. My timing sucked. But yeah, both of those I would
Um,
really love to do
and
some work in. That would be
and then they
swell.
went on to make Pillars of Eternity.
There's so much good, I mean, there's so many good settings, and digging on into those would be fantastic. But I gotta say, the top two would be Fallout and Star Wars. Like, lots of versatility. Um, and yeah, that would be swell. Please and thank you. If anybody can make that happen, please just sing it my way. I don't know.
Well, we'll do our best to help you out.
Thank you.
Right. So I've got a few final things to finish up here. First little finale segments. These the segments Told you before, we're writer specific. These ones, everyone. So these have been test driven, and they're going quite well so far.
Excellent.
So this one is called "The Crest Rewards Are Broken." What is the dumbest reward you've received for something that felt like a major accomplishment, or the biggest reward you felt for something that was a small achievement? And that can be personal, game related, anything.
And you're also talking to somebody who loves items, so my brain is just like a swirling mass of chaos now. It's a lot of times too, being as somebody who made items, sometimes it's just a I made a cool thing. Somebody put it somewhere, I guess. Like not having that connection to that. It all just sort of depends on how things work out. It's been said before, so I can't claim any sort of like an amazing insight to this, but that Borderlands 2 quest where you get the really obnoxious gun. It's just like bang, bang. I have heard multiple times people say stuff like, "Wow, it'd be really funny to have a game where like all of the sound effects are just like some dude, making the noises," and I'm like, I submit. I mean, they were obviously trying to make the gun sound like the most annoying thing ever, and that was really funny for time, but there has a very limited longevity for that one. Yeah, like somebody actually going "Vroom, vroom" with a lightsaber would be incredibly fucking funny in a Star Wars game. I'm a dork who loves the behind the scenes stuff, and I was watching some of the behind the scenes for Thor Ragnarok, and they were like rehearsing a scene and stuff with Kate Blanchett as Hela, and she stopped at a point and she's like, I should really stop making all of these noises as I'm doing stuff. I'm just like, yeah, I would do the same thing. I would do the same thing. Sometimes it's just like inevitable, but like there's a big difference between yourself doing it and hearing somebody else do it. I think it would be really funny to have I mean, like microphone based games are like very hit or miss, but if you had to make the weapon noise in order to have it fire, like you're playing like a VR game and you have to go pew 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 pew. Get actually something to fire would be the funniest thing ever. Back in the day, some awesome people I worked with at Double Bear did a game jam that was like noise or something like that, where you were playing a kaiju like rampaging through the city, and you had to yell into a mic to breathe fire enough to like destroy stuff. And I'm just like, that concept has legs, really, really annoying legs, but like, oh, there's something out there that has merit to it. But in terms of like two really ridiculous items that I'm sure other people would put on this list, I made a couple for Mask of the Betrayer called, well, one was if you break this magic vase, mephits are inside it and you get actual mephit guano as a reward. They're like, it's magical, but you get like minus to your charisma, like getting to write the line. You should probably wash your hands after touching this. And another one called the D pouch, DEEA. And that was because, as you might have noticed, game developers curse a lot. But weird thing about Obsidian back in the day was people didn't say douchebag or something. They were like, "Oh, that guy's such a d bag" or something. It had this weird prevalence at the studio. So I made a D pouch, which basically was like major plus your intimidation, but like minus to persuasion or charisma. And I was just like, inside joke. So, and that was a trinket. We had just included trinkets. So I was like, these are things that had passive effects. And I'm like, I hope people are paying attention to the shit that they're putting in their inventory because otherwise they'll be like, why am I sucking so much at all of these like charisma checks? Like, because you're a
Because you're a
D-bag,
D-bag.
man. You got the D-bag. The people who have figured that one out are probably like,
Everyone's
single
gonna go back
digit
and check their save files now.
numbers. Yes, please do. I'm looking forward to the one single Reddit thread that will pop up like, why the fuck is my charisma so bad? Playing Mask of the Betrayer now. Like it might happen. I will be scanning Reddit to see if that'll happen. Maybe.
Next up, we're going to make your RPG super party. So you get to pick your party. You get one tank, one damage dealer, one mage, and then a healer and support
Man.
from any RPG or MMO. And I will try my best to let you know if one of them has been picked previously.
It's tough too because it's also like, oh, what kind of classes do they have? And I'm just like, okay, my support guy, my tank is Iron Bull. I'm really gonna try to not just pick characters like romance, red. Yeah, my tank is Iron Bull.
From
It's
what's that
hard
from?
from Dragon Age Inquisition. Uh, my support is like I don't know how wide of a net we can cast here. I changed
The
my.
net has been quite wide so far.
I'm gonna go with I was gonna go with Garrus, and I'd love
Aerith is
love
taken.
him to Garrus, but now I'm like, oh, Aerith, yeah, good healer. Garrus from Mass Effect series, I love him, but
Garrus is not taken.
oh yeah, add him there. Tybalt Leftpaw, my buddy, my most beloved character from and one of the mentor characters from Guild Wars 2. He was the character I had the most fun working with and absolutely adored him. So I got to bring my buddy Tybalt along. He's an engineer and he's got like he's a good guy to have your back. Mage boy, VV Final Fantasy 9, I guess, just because he's
I
so cute and
don't believe Vivi's
powerful.
actually been said so far, so
I'm just like, I think powerful
I th
little magic guy, and I'm just like,
yeah,
my boy Vivi.
I think everyone's just trying their best to avoid the obvious answers for the most part.
I'm nothing if not completely not obvious. Oh gosh, yeah, healer. Ooh, that's always a toughie too. Um, Shadowheart is fun, but if we're gonna be like limiting our BG3 cast, I've got to have Asterion as like sneaky thief kind of character. Yeah, who am I missing? Who am I missing? I've got like my tank is Iron Bull. I've got a couple support characters. Yeah, who am I missing right now?
Your damage was that Tybalt.
Yeah, yeah, he is good
Mage is
support.
Vivi. You've just got to narrow it down to one healer or support.
Or some. All right, I'm gonna stick with my guy Tibble. I think because also engineers have like healing turrets, and a turret
Okay.
is nice because it can hang out there doing stuff, and it doesn't have to. Then somebody's freed up to do more damage and not just have to watch your bar go down, and then you're back. You're back.
So we have Iron Bull, Asterion, Vivi, and Tybalt.
Yes. That's, I
Fan.
mean, stretches the Western RPGs to MMOs to JRPG. I hope I have pleased the crowd.
Well, the next one can cover the last bit that you decided you weren't going to go with.
Oh, cripes.
Um, if you could take out any character from an RPG or an MMO on a date, who would it be, and where are you going? And this activity that you do is limited to either the game world they're from or real life.
I mean, this is also probably like a bit of like recentness. Because I'm still playing through Baldur's Gate 3, but I do love Asterion. I think that he would like know all the best clubs, and all the sort of spots, but also understand like I'm kind of a homebody and like just going to like a nice, pub or something and having like listening to music and having good wine would be like that's a nice evening. I think we're on the same kind of vibe there. And uh yeah, he's charming company and
So
yeah. I don't think
would
he
you
would
go
be
to a
boring.
would you go to a tavern in Faerun, or would you make him come to one in Seattle?
I think that if he was in the city, he would be the dude who knows all the speakeasies. He'd be like, "Darling, we're not going to go to Cannon. It's too overrated. I know this beautiful one up in Capitol Hill. Sorry, I'm sorry, Neil Newbun. I never should have tried to imitate your voice." But yeah, he seems like a dude who would know all the best spots. Having that being like a food nerd and somebody who loves craft cocktails, he'd be on my vibe, I'm sure. Like would have a good time. He can also
um,
sneak into places because his stealth is like the best.
and last question: what game would you recommend to people that is playable by today's standards, but is underrated or overlooked as an RPG or an MMO?
Oh man, there's a fantastic lot of good ones.
This is a selfish one because I'm just trying to broaden the games that I'm playing myself.
So I'm just gonna fling some of my favorites at you. Are you a fan? And also, it's like as much as I'm like genres and illusion, man, it's all about mechanics. Mechanics are still important. If you're not a fan of adventure games, I wouldn't recommend this one as much. But my favorite game, not the game that I think is the best, but my favorite game because it like hit at a moment in my life that became meaningful was The Dig. It's a LucasArts game. It's on Steam. I think it was like 96, 97. It was like one of their adventure games that just sort of slipped through the cracks. It's dramatic. It's not like it has funny moments, but it is more a dramatic one. Robert Patrick does a voice in it, like the T 1000, which is like, wait, it's still absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. It has some moments that are just like dark. Like it was like really one of the first, like I grew up with Sierra games, which are just like, boom, you dead, boom, you dead, boom, you dead. Better make a lot of save games. Like, ha ha ha. But the philosophy of LucasArts was, and they said in the manual, like, we understand that exploring an alien planet isn't like a visit to the mall. Like, there should be a sense of danger here, but like, we also want you to be able to explore and have a good time. You're not going to die. Basically, there's not a way to die in LucasArts adventure games, with the exception of Maniac Mansion. Nobody bring that one up. I know about the hamster microwave thing, but the dig is it has some inscrutable ass puzzles here and there because it's an adventure game that came out in the 90s and that was what happened. But, I mean, we have fantastic solutions to that now. Just like walk your way through it. That one is still really amazing. And the other one, as far as I don't know as many platforms this is available on, but Breath of Fire 4 still fucking slaps. It's still a great game. And it's also I have this weird obsession with fishing mini games. As much as I don't like fishing at all in real life, there's so many weird examples of fishing mini games, and 4 has a fantastic one that is so clever, it's useful, it's innovative. I've talked about it too much already, and it was also like Capcom at their 2D animation peak where everything just looks fluid and lush. And after 5, the Breath of Fire series just vanished. That would be another like, please make this a series. And credit, yeah, I'm like, I have an addendum to one of my earlier ones. Like Fallout and Star Wars are a setting, but if somebody offered me the opportunity to work on a Persona game, I would lose my mind backwards because I'm such a huge fan. And now I'm like, crud, I'm not thinking of any of the characters for that. That
Yep.
party thing is going to be in my head forever now. So I'm gonna be obsessed just thinking about like rosters across the multiverse. So man.
I think we've had one Persona character mentioned so far.
Ooh, which one was it?
Don't remember off the top of my head.
Like, was it 3? Was it 5? Was it
Ryuji.
Ryuji? He's a good boy.
And
I
to
love
answer your
GA.
question, apparently Breath of Fire 4 is currently available on GOG.
No way! Yeah,
Uh,
good on GOG. That isn't their name, but yeah.
yeah. I just
I
pulled
recommend
up
it.
the Wikipedia page and it said it was released worldwide on April 25th of this year.
Of this year.
Yeah.
Wow! Man, timely. Yeah, it's still a really good game. It's an actual really interesting story. I wanted to like 5 like a lot. The battle system there is really interesting, but like that one failed commercially, and I don't know if Capcom would ever give a crap about going back to this IP again. But like, please, please, I would just like to see it again because it's a neat system. And but in the meantime, we've got 4. 4 is good, and it's on GOG now. Hooray! It's like I knew. I didn't know though. Yeah, the very much like of an era. It's like the late 90s, the early 2000s. Like these are gonna be a hard bite for some people in terms of mechanics, but totally worthwhile, I think. Like I don't know how long Breath of Fire 4 is anymore. The dig is like probably 4 hours or something like that, or maybe 3. It's probably the length of one of the Lord of the Rings movies with special features. So if you can sit that,
Uh,
then
well,
dig into
ac
the dig.
according to the page on GOG, Breath of Fire 4 has the main quest alone is 36 hours.
What did I estimate? I was thinking it was probably in the 30 to 40-hour range. That was kind of typical for that time.
Main quest and side quests is about 33 to 34, and a completionist run is nearing 60.
Ooh, now I'm like wondering what I've missed. Dang it! Now I know it's on GOG and I have to go play it. I have 7. If I showed you how big my library of unplayed games in Steam is, and that I've now
Uh,
added to even more with the latest
well,
sale,
I think that I might win that.
I will send you a number. You send me back, and I will be shamed or triumphant. Either way, we'll know something more about ourselves.
Well, I'm loading up Steam right now. I will tell you
Oh,
just in just a second.
I'm so tempted to just do that and be like head to head. No, I'm gonna keep my, my sticky fingers away from
Search
Steam.
type unplayed 1,218.
Okay, now I'm gonna look because I know that is you done beat me, but I want to see by how okay, played. Yeah, dang it. 233. All right,
Yeah,
sir. I applaud you.
I blame Humble Bundle for that.
Yeah, same, same. I picked up so many. He's like, "Well, I'm supporting a good cause." I know that I oh, this might be a challenge. I picked up a recent bundle on itch.io that was like 400 games, and I
Oh,
haven't touched any of them yet.
nice.
It was the support for the California fires one, so somebody can call shenanigans on me if it's like, "No, Annie, it was like only 100," but like add that to the total. So show how much I'm missing in some weird competitive sense.
This is how much time I don't have.
Yeah, woo! I
Uh,
wanted to actually start like a stream, like I may still someday a friendy Twitch stream that's just us going through our Steam queue, either my co-host Mike or me, just like I haven't played this one and like picking the games that the other one has played. Like I haven't played Firewatch, but he has, so he would get to be the spectator while I played it and like vice versa and just
well,
seeing commentary and
just
everything.
gonna throw this game out there because it is now a long running joke that I mention it every episode because I do, because it's a very good game that deserves a lot more attention than it gets. It's the PlayStation 2 entry Dark Cloud.
I knew Dark Cloud was gonna come up. I remember you saying I saw another one. I was just like, ah, yes, Dark Cloud. I got pretty far in Dark Cloud, except to a point where I was playing a character, one of the bow staff, and the
Yep,
weapon breaking fucking mechanic in that game.
it's
I think
brutal.
I broke all my stuff, and I'm like, I don't know if I can even continue right now. I've gone so far and was just kind of both pissed and heartbroken at that point. There was a lot of stuff I really liked about that game, and I think I would have just been like, meh, like annoyed if I couldn't continue and put it down and not sulked about it to this day. But yeah, that is the thing. Like Dark Cloud 2 was very interesting. I think that I think level 5, is that the
Yeah,
developer? They kind of pivoted from that braking mechanic into an improvement mechanic in Rogue Galaxy that I
yeah.
think that a lot of games should pay attention to because and it was episode 2 of the my podcast friend DA where we talked about item degradation and going it would be, better to sort of flip that concept where it's like we want players to use more diversity of items. It's like you should then make items that they might not have used get better rather than shit they like break. It's like, oh, Ratchet and Clank had that too. Like, yes, why didn't I think of Ratchet and Clank? And yeah, it's like there was some stuff I used in that I would never have like engaged in because I wanted to see it level up. And I know that I did that in Rogue Galaxy as well. But like Dark Cloud's good. It's good. I don't know if I could go back to it though. I would probably get stuck in the same goddamn spot with bow breaking again. Like, no, not
um,
again.
well, one of my previous guests, the Broodals, he's the world record speed run holder for Final Fantasy 9 and 7, I think.
Oh man, that's you got to be breaking a lot of stuff in the core DNA of the game to be able to speed run those. Impressive.
He's convinced me that I need to try speedrunning, so the game that I picked was Dark Cloud. So I've got it all set up, I just haven't got
Oh
round
my
to
god.
attempting it yet. There's a guide and everything, but I'm gonna do the glitchless run,
Where
'cause I don't
you
wanna
were
get
doing it
into the
like legit. Oh man.
I don't wanna get into the whole how to break the game yet. That's another whole 'nother stepping stone.
Oh man.
But yeah, is there anything else you wanna bring up before we wrap up?
I've had a really great time. Thank you for indulging me. Every time you asked a writer question, it was just like, time for drama.
Well, I could have probably carried on for another 2 hours.
Well, anytime that you're like, well, I have this long stretch of time that like all the guests are busy. I'll see what Andy's up to. I'll be like, oh yeah, let's talk more games. Anyhow, that's just fun to do anyway. I very much enjoy just talking about video games. That's why I like started my podcast that I've been terrible at actually keeping up to date. Like, there's 4
It's a
episodes of
lot of work.
Friendier. Oh my god. Yeah, I was like, I had the great idea of illustrating mine, so that's even longer. So
Do
it's
you do
like
all the illustrations yourself?
yes. Yes, they're not good, but I do them in quantity. So yeah, I friend PA the podcast that is not a podcast. We've had some really fantastic people on. Xavier Nelson Jr. from Strange Scaffold, brilliant. Well, everybody's awesome. Matt McLean from uh, Generic Lake Monster, Lake Quarterstaff. That's his game. It's great. David Geider, who's the creator of the Dragon Age setting in Summerfall Studios. And the last one we talked to, Brenda Romero of Romero Studios, RIP. Incredible, fantastic people that were really, really great to talk to. And it's like, there's so many other awesome luminaries in the industry that I really want to talk to, but it's such a dark time for the gaming industry right now that it's hard to like reach out and be like, hey, do you want to be on my goofy ass podcast? When
Hey,
things
it's
might
working
be
for
so
me.
difficult. Yeah, I mean that is it's also just like no, it's needed. It's what we do. It helps the heart and all that. But then my lazy ass thinks about having to animate the whole damn thing. Cut it all down. And I'm like, ugh, hard. So I need to get off my butt and get more of these awesome fellow devs speaking, and the whole mechanic that like lives behind why I wanted to do this was justify the mechanic, which is basically picking out game mechanics that we may not like at all, but keep reappearing in games and going, okay, let's say why they're good or useful. So you have to argue in favor of them, and they've been
In favor of something you don't like. That's interesting.
yeah, quick time events, unskippable cutscenes, item degradation. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm missing one now, but that will be a fun surprise for anybody who's watching through them. But yeah, item degradation was the hardest one to like dig into and find the positives of, but I think we did it. I think we found a good argument for why it can be useful, but I don't think at any point anybody's gonna be like, man, I love this mechanic. That's okay. That's all right. It's just finding how it can be useful. It's another tool in the toolbox. It's just whether or not we want to use it.
Fair enough. I can see some very difficult arguments to make there for some of those.
That's episode 2, in case anybody is just like, what the hell did you have to say to make it work? Like, it's in there, I promise. We found our way there. The noise of like shock and disappointment, because we had it set up so it was like between my co-host and I, one of us knows what the thing is and the other one doesn't. So when I dropped that, like, this is what it is, surprise, the noise of like dismay and pain the guest my co-host made, and like horrific glee, and it was memorable. You can definitely hear how upset they were at having to say good things about something that was obviously a very hated thing. Like, nobody has to say about how the item degradation in Breath of the Wild was their favorite thing ever. I won't make you lie. We'll figure this out together.
Well, flip it on its head and talk against good mechanics.
Why unlimited lives is dumb and butts. No. It made me harder. Forcing people to be positive, I felt like it was also kind of like, it's harder, but it's good for the soul. Kind of like forcing positivity is good, actually. No, that's not what
Yeah. So that is where we're going to leave this side quest. Narrative rabbit holes, branching dialogue chaos, and just enough existential design talk to make you rethink your next journal entry. A huge thanks to Annie for joining me today at the tavern and making the rest of us look bad for not having our own in-game codexes. If you enjoyed this episode, you know what to do. Like, share, and drop your favourite morally grey RPG choice into the comments, and maybe tell us what companion you absolutely did not betray. We'll believe you, probably. But for now, we've reached the end of our save point. We'll see you next time, and remember, every great adventure starts with a side quest.